This is the one, without any doubt, question, or maybes. This is the weapon that you need to have in your arsenal. Why? Well, hey guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're going to be re-diving deeper into the Incarnon Torid. Bear in mind, this is one of the best, if not the best weapon in the game, so we're not going to be doing any new player-friendly build. However, we will be doing a couple of variations on an endgame setup. Buckle up, it's gonna be amazing. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that, just a couple of our regular free shots. In normal form, the Incarnon Torid fires a sticky grenade that will be attaching itself both to enemies and surfaces, leaving behind a noxious cloud that will be ticking for area of effect damage. One of the main advantages of the Torid is the fact that it can get Incarnon charged via headshots and body shots alike, so it's a lot easier to charge the weapon. The maximum charge in Incarnon form is gonna be a massive 170. The weapon changes appearance and functionality as well. Now it's a limited range beam weapon. The range 40 meters 40 by default. You cannot extend this with Ruinous Extension or Continuous Beam since the mods are not available to be equipped on the weapon. Now you see the Torid can trick you a little bit, or at least that's what happened with me. It looks like it's a beam weapon and it chains to additional targets, but in fact it's a bit more complicated than that. At the point of contact between the beam and the surface, the weapon will be generating a 3-meter area of effect sphere. Now this sphere acts like an extension essentially of the main beam, so a target can't be hit by both the initial beam and the sphere itself. However, each target hit by the initial area of effect has the potential to chain up to 5 additional targets. That theoretically means that you have no cap on how many targets you can hit at once, so a clump up ability will definitely bring out the full area of effect potential. To further illustrate how the area of effect and the chain works, we bunched up a whole bunch of enemies. Now we're going to be hitting the ground right in the middle, and you will see we are able to continuously hit all nearby enemies. So what's happening on contact, we are generating that 3-meter sphere, and each target hit by that 3-meter sphere is capable of chaining to 5 additional nearby enemies within 6 meters of each other. Now do bear in mind, it looks fantastic, but you are losing a bunch of damage, with each chain doing 75% of the previous chain's damage. Punch-through mods will not have any effect in Incarnon form, so no, your beam will not be going through the initial target to hit multiple, to generate multiple spheres, multiple chains, multiple anything. Do not use punch-through on the weapon, except if you want your normal form's grenade to go for. No, just don't. Just don't. Also, the spherical damage radius does not benefit from multi-shot, only the main beam. So that means we're going to be dropping that multi-shot arcane on the build. The beam will chain independently to 5 additional enemies, starting from each target hit by the initial damage radius. Each chain chooses targets independently, and an enemy can be struck by multiple chains. However, due to the damage radius not benefiting from multi-shot, beams chaining from targets that were in the damage radius, but not directly struck by initial beam itself, will also not benefit from multi-shot. Oh, and in the interest of full disclosure, I found out how the Torid actually functions from a user called Murmur. Check him out over on YouTube, he's got a great video showcasing the Torid's mechanics. The first evolution enables a transformation. At level 2 is where you get your first real choice. The best in slot will be Final Fusillade. Increases base damage by 51 plus free multi-shot on the last shot in the magazine. The last shot in the magazine, of course, portrays to the normal form of the weapon, and you can build it for normal form, more on that just a tad later. The second option, Plentiful Mayhem, increases base damage by only 31 instead of 51. Multi-shot consumes ammo directly from capacity and does 60% damage. Now that is a pretty big increase in damage. Unfortunately, it's gonna be basically nuking your cycle from a DPS perspective. Go with the first option, Final Fusillade. Evolution 3 is the utility free. On this one you can go for whatever fits your fancy. For example, if you plan on building it for normal form, and I know I keep saying normal form simply because the weapon is actually quite powerful in its normal form as well, more on that later, Extended Volley might be a pretty good idea. Increases base magazine capacity by 9, so you go from 5 to 14, which is why my weapon has a magazine capacity of 14. Swift Deliverance is what I usually go for, 50% projectile flight speed, but does it really matter? I mean, you're gonna be hitting your targets anyway, and again, this only portrays to the normal form. Renewed Horror. Reload from empty, lingering damage field duration doubles on first shot. So if you want to make an area of effect build out of the initial fire mode, you can go for something like so. Again, this is dealer's choice for the most part. The final evolution, Evolution 4, is the one that brings the big DPS increases. Now, I'm not gonna keep you in suspense. The best of both worlds is gonna be Survivor's Edge. Increases base critical chance by 15 and base status chance by 15. It's just huge. It's just absolutely insane because, again, it modifies the actual base value. So all your mods are gonna be applying to the new value. But let's say you want to build a status Torid, especially good considering that the brand new blast proc, which I guess isn't all that new anymore, is quite potent. In that case, Elemental Balance with a massive base status chance increase of 34%. Now, if I was you, I would not touch Commodore's Fortune. I know 20% base critical chance is more than 15, but honestly, Survivor's Edge is going to be outperforming this one 99% of the time. If you want to go status, Elemental Balance. If you want to go quote-unquote the best route, you go for Survivor's Edge. In case you're more of a newer player and you stumbled on the Incarnon Torid because, hey man, it's the best weapon in the game, rest assured this is not exactly a new player-friendly weapon. If you haven't gotten the Incarnon Torid just yet and you're looking for something a bit more, well, early on, click the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on something that will teach you how to mod your weapons so you can make your own builds. As for us veterans that just jump around in our orbiter all day, you're gonna be looking at something like this, and I'm gonna give you a couple of variations. So, quick explanations. Prime Firestorm, why is it here? Do you need to ask now that you understand how the weapon's area of effect actually works in Incarnate form? Well, if you do, basically I'm gonna be making it simple. It doesn't increase the length of your chain, no, it just increases the size of the invisible AoE. Why do they have to make it invisible? I don't know, to torment us, probably, but basically it kind of goes like this. Prime Firestorm on the Incarnate Torid means more chains, more damage. And that's kind of it. Is it mandatory? Must you have it? Nope, not really, especially not if you want to try something a bit more focused damage, a bit more single target on the Torid, because you don't really need to increase that area of effect anyway. But honestly, 8 times out of 10, now I'm taking Prime Firestorm. Galvanized Aptitude, a must-have, a no-brainer, right? Well, not exactly. The 80% status chance for a blast build, which is what we're building initially, is a no-brainer, but let's think about that flat damage component. Are we getting a lot? The Torid only applies right now 2 damage types or 2 status types to the target, Toxin and Blast. So it's not going to be providing a truck of flat damage. Make sure you use a primer, something like a Diriga. You can add a third with Hunter Munitions. Something that you need to be reminded about Hunter Munitions, this one exists outside of the weapon status chance and status priority. So essentially adding Hunter Munitions to the weapon will get you a third status proc on your target, more flat damage out of Galvanized Aptitude, and does not affect any statuses you might have been gotten out of the weapon, so you're still going to be getting the same amount of Blast and Toxin. For example, you can replace the Bane mod if you don't like Bane mods. As for Arcane, why am I using Primary Merciless? That doesn't make sense. You're getting plenty of flat damage from Galvanized Aptitude, right? Well, right, but what else are you gonna be using? Something like Frostbite? Not the smartest idea in the world, simply because multi-shot doesn't do anything for the actual invisible AoE or the chains. What it does help is with the initial beam making contact with a target, and of course increases the damage, therefore the resulting chains from the initial one will also be getting a damage increase. Heavy Goon Eximus. Maximize! Unpause day level 205, all of that good stuff. Let's hit him in the face. I mean, they evaporated. And of course, the closer they are to one another because we are using a blast build, the more impressive this will be. So if you couple this with Nidus's ability, oh my god, it's just gonna absolutely wreck everything that stands before you. One more time for good measures because I do enjoy it. Look at that. Now that is just insane, man. The entire room essentially blows up. It's beautiful, it's insane, it's glorious. Brings a tear to your eye. And that was without a primer because I just wanted to show you how powerful the build can be even without priming. Keep in mind what I said about Galvanized Aptitude, however. So we're going to be using now a Hellstrom. He's going to be proccing on my targets Cold and Corrosive. And fully charged Incarnon and fire. That is beautiful. Brings a tear to my eye and the FPS from my game. Level 205, Corrupted Heavy Goons, Eximus. Once again, this is normal form right now. We're just gonna be doing one shot. One shot. It just explodes them. Look at that. Even in normal form. This is not Incarnate form. I don't even need to try. Look at that. Beautiful, fantastic, glorious. This is the power of the Incarnon Torid, a weapon that anybody and everybody should have in their arsenal. There's only one type of player that should not play with this weapon. If you don't like to play the game on easy mode, because essentially a weapon such as this basically trivializes the game. But let's say you want something a bit more different. I want something with a bit more of forward punch and less AoE. In that case, you can get rid of Prime Firestorm. I don't really think it's that smart of an idea, but let's say you want to deal more with Acolytes. Usually status builds, except blast builds, have a harder time dealing with them, so we're going to be removing this one. Did you know that the chains can actually go for a headshot? So Galvanized Scope is legitimately viable on this one. Now, honestly, considering the critical chance of the weapon, modded 132 with critical delay, I wouldn't bother all that much with it, but hey, I know you guys like them pretty numbers, so why the hell not? And I know what you hate Bane mod, so we're gonna be removing this one. We're gonna be making viral on the weapon simply by removing the heat mod. And instead, we're gonna be going for a tried and true recipe, Hunter. You gotta... You must have saw this one coming. I know you guys don't like Hunter Munitions anymore, but you gotta trust me, it's still one hell of a mod, and slashes are still fantastic. As for the last mod slot, you do have a couple of options. For example, go for a Riven. I'm not gonna showcase it with a Riven because I'm fully aware this will not apply to most of you. Especially not a Riven with flat damage. No more. No more flat damage on the Riven. Let it die. Critical damage, though, that would be fantastic. Something like critical chance, critical damage, multi-shot for the reasons we already talked about, not so much. What about fire rate? If I build fire rate on the gun, I no longer have to require my Warframe to have it for me. So I'm gonna be going for something like Vile Acceleration. And if you need to ask why not Prime Shred, then you haven't been paying attention. Go back to the start. Now, gentlemen, try not to blink too often because you might miss this one. Behold. The power of the Torid, Incarnon! Or Incarnon Torid, or whatever else you want to call it. Freeze! What's my stacks? Look at that. 3 of Primary Merciless, that's good. Look for the Clover, Clover, Clover. There we go. We got 2 stacks of Galvanized Scope. Out of like 20 targets. Now, you want that integrity, it doesn't always stay up. But the point is, it does kind of work because the chains can actually headshot. The whole headshot kill part is a bit more difficult, so you can swap that one out for whatever fits your fancy. By this point, you should understand pretty much what are the strengths and weaknesses of the weapon, and you should be able to make your own build. Oh, almost forgot about the normal mode, mustn't forget that one. We're just gonna be mostly one-shotting. There you go, one-shot body shot. 4Z body shot. And if the contact damage doesn't kill him, the damage over time from the proc surely will. Take a look. It just murderizes a target. Contact damage kill. Headshot contact damage, that was 2 point something million. You can easily get over 5 million with this one, no problem whatsoever. The power of the Torid. Now let me show you some actual gameplay for the sake of actually showing you some gameplay and some Acolyte kills, but let's go kill the Murmur. And against Murmur, on this weapon, you should build Radiation for the contact damage. Radiation with ideally 90s over 60s and Prime Fire in your store. Welcome to Deimos, and as you can see, the Incarnon Torid can absolutely melt everything and anything in its path. Are you surprised? You're probably not. This is just an insane and amazing weapon. It's one of the best, if not the best weapon in the game. And it's not just about the damage, and it's not just about the hilarious amount of area of effect that it has for this high of a DPS weapon. It's the fact that it's so easy to use. I don't really need to point it at my enemy. Look, I'm just hitting the ground here somewhere. It's so easy for me to charge it. I just, again, kind of point at the crowd and hope that grenade will make contact with something, and I'm gonna be getting a ton of Incarnon charge, and I just run for the mission and kill stuff. That's kind of it. If you want to play the game on easy mode, this is your weapon. Now don't get me wrong, it's still not my favorite. I still prefer the Latron, since that one in actual gameplay and execution is a whole lot more satisfying, and I love the bounce, but at the end of the day, that's a subjective matter entirely. And I can stay here all day and kill these fodder enemies, but it's not really gonna be proving much of anything. How about we kill an Acolyte or 2? Oh, one thing that I did forget to mention, this is the same setup we used earlier, but if you prefer a different primer, why don't you go for the Vulpaphyla? It can get you fire rate and critical damage, which will work fantastically well with our Torid. Now, let's see if we can find the Necromech. I think there's one here. I swear there was one here, boys. What do we got? We got Violence. We will commit Violence against him. Please spawn over here. I'm not gonna do any of Citrine's tricks. I'm just gonna use her to stay alive. Open up fire. He's invulnerable now. Out of invulnerability phase. And melted away. That's it for Violence. If you want a bit more damage towards Acolytes, keep in mind the following. Faction mods do nothing versus them, and Prime Firestorm isn't gonna help you either. So simply increase your womp damage, as in the contact damage that you do to your targets. And I do believe, my friends, that is pretty much it. It's time to draw some conclusions. Do you need me to tell you how amazing this weapon is? I don't think you do. I think you realize this is one of the best, if not the best gun in the game right now. It's very easy to use, it's extremely effective at mostly whatever, so stop waiting and go for the Incarnon Torid. I 100% recommend it. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, let us know in the comment section down below. You can also catch me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Until next time, my friends.